Today I will be showing how we solve for x. In this video I will be including multiple levels of equations and problems, and in the down bar I will include times that you can skip ahead to if these problems are too simple or too complex. So let's begin.
Let's begin with the equation x plus 3. In algebra, you always want to remember the opposites. So positive 3, the opposite would be negative 3. So in order to get x by itself, we're going to subtract 3. The positive 3 and negative 3 would cancel each other out, which would bring the x down, along with the 6. But we aren't done yet. To equal the equation out, we have to subtract 3 from the other side of the equation because we subtracted 3 from one side of the equation. So now that'll give us x equals 3. To check our answer, we're going to input the answer we got in where x would be. So 3 plus 3 equals 6. Our second equation is 2x equals 10. Another way to write 2x is 2 times x. Because the opposite of multiplying is dividing, we're going to look at 2x, or 2 times x, and divide it by 2. Because we divided by 2 on one side of the equation, the 2's will cancel out, giving us x equals 10. And because we divided by 2 on one side of the equation, we have to do it on the other side. And 10 divided by 2 gives us x equals 5. Our third equation is x divided by 5 equals 2. Because the opposite of dividing is multiplying, we're going to multiply x divided by 5 times 5. Canceling the 5's out, we get x equals 2. But because we multiplied on one side of the equation, we have to multiply the 2 by the same number. This will give us x equals 10. Our next equation is 2x plus 4 equals 10. We're going to start by looking at the positive 4. Since the opposite of positive 4 is negative 4, we're going to subtract 4. We're going to start by bringing 2x down along with the 10. But don't forget, because we subtracted 4, we have to subtract 4 to the other side of the equation as well, giving us 2x equals 6. Now we're just going to do the opposite of multiplying by 2, so dividing by 2. And remember, we have to do it on both sides of the equation, giving us x equals 3. Our next equation is x divided by 2 plus 3 equals 12. We're going to start by looking at the positive 3, and we're going to do the opposite, which would be negative 3, or subtracting 3. So that will bring us x over 2 equals 12. But because we subtracted 3 on one side, we have to subtract 3 on the other side, giving us x over 2 equals 9. Because we're dividing x by 2, the opposite would be multiplying. So we're going to multiply the whole equation by 2. So now the 2's will cancel each other out, giving us x. And we have to multiply 9 by 2 as well, giving us x equals 18. Now we're going to look at something called grouping. Grouping is when you combine two terms that are alike. So because the 2 and the 3 are both being multiplied by x, they are considered like terms. We are now going to combine like terms, giving us 5x equals 10. And we're not going to do anything on the other side of the equation. But now we are going to divide by 5 from both sides of the equation, giving us x equals 2. Because we have a 3x and a negative 4x, they are both the same number because they both have a variable at the end. So now we're going to combine both, so negative 4x plus 3x will give us negative 1x, or negative x. Let's use negative 1x. Now that we have combined both of our numbers that have variables in them, we're going to focus on the numbers that don't have variables in them, or 6 and 2. Because we have a positive 6 and a positive 2, we're going to add them together to get a positive 8. Now we're going to bring down the 20. Now we have the equation negative 1x plus 8. Because we have a plus 8, we're going to subtract 8 from both sides of the equation. This will give us negative 1x equals 12. Because we want to get x by itself, we're going to divide by negative 1 on both sides of the equation. This will give us x equals negative 12. Now let's look at the equation 4 times x minus 5 equals 12. We're going to have to use the distributive property. The distributive property means that a times b plus c equals ab plus ac. Keeping the distributive property in mind, we are now going to multiply 4 by x and 4 by 5. We're going to start by multiplying 4 by x, which will give us 4x. Now we're going to take our 4 and multiply it by 5. This will give us 20. Now we're going to bring down the 12, giving us 4x minus 20 equals 12. We're going to solve for x. We're going to add 20 to this side of the equation, canceling each other out. Then we're going to add 20 to the opposite side, giving us 4x equals 32. Now we are going to divide the whole equation by 4, giving us x equals 8. When doing this equation, keep in mind that finding the square root of x is the opposite of x squared. So we're going to find the square root of x squared. This means that these two will cancel each other out. But because we did it on one side, we have to do it on the other side. And the square root of 25 is 5. This means x equals 5. Let's take a look at the equation 5x equals 10 plus 3x. We have two like terms, 5x and 3x. They are like because they both have x on the end. This means that we could combine them if they were on the same side. We're going to get 3 on the other side of the equation, which means the opposite of plus 3x is negative 3x, or subtract 3x. So now we're going to subtract 3x on the other side of the equation, and because they are like terms, you can subtract them. So now we have 2x equals 10. Now we are just going to solve for x by dividing 2x by 2, giving us x equals 5. In this equation, it is an example of everything we have learned so far. So we're going to start by distributing the 2x minus 7. This will give us 2x minus 14. Then we'll bring down the plus 4 minus 3x. Now we are going to bring down the x, but we have to still do a little bit of distributing. We're now going to distribute the 3 times x plus 2. This will give us 3x plus 6. Now we're going to combine like terms on one side of the equation. This means we can take 2x and negative 3x and combine them, which will give us negative 1x. Then we're going to combine just our regular integers, which means we're going to take negative 14 and positive 4. Adding those together, we're going to get negative 10. Now let's look at the other side of the equation. We have 1x, or just x, minus 3x. This will give us a negative 2x, so we're going to bring that down into our other equation. And because we just have 1 6, we can't combine it with any other integer, so we're going to bring that down as well. As negative 2x and negative 1x are similar numbers, you can add them together, meaning we'll add plus 2x to one side and plus 2x to the other side, giving us 1x minus 10 equals 6. Now we'll just add 10 to both sides, giving us 1x equals 16. Now we'll divide by 1 to get our x by ourselves, giving us x equals 16. Next problem is the Cox family and the Nelson family each used their sprinklers last summer. The water output rate for the Cox family sprinkler was 40 liters per hour. The water output rate for the Nelson family sprinkler was 20 liters per hour. The families used their sprinklers for a combined total of 35 hours, resulting in a total water output of 1,100 liters. How long was each sprinkler used? Start with the equation 40C plus 20N equals 1,100. We will do 40 times the hours the Cox family used their sprinkler plus 20 times the amount of hours the Nelson family used their sprinkler to get 1,100. Also know that the amount of hours the Cox family used their sprinkler plus the amount of hours the Nelson family used their sprinkler will equal 35. We'll try to find C. We can get C by subtracting N from C plus N, giving us 35 minus N equals C. Because we know what C is, we can input it into the equation, as I have done. So we have 40 times 35 minus H plus 20N equals 1,100. For distributing the 40, we get 1,400 minus 40N plus 20N equals 1,100. We will combine like terms, giving us 1,400 minus 20N equals 1,100. We can solve for N by dividing both sides of the equation by negative 20. This will give us N equals 15. Now let's go back to the equation C plus N equals 35. If we know that N equals 15, we will input it for N. C plus 15 equals 35. Now we'll subtract 15 from both sides, giving us C equals 20 and N equals 15. Let's look at our next problem, x squared minus 5x plus 6. For this equation, we're going to do two pairs of parentheses. X squared is going to have to equal the first two numbers of both parentheses, while the last number of our equation, 6, will equal the last two numbers. So x squared, the only result is x times x, and let's put in 3 times 2 to find 6. We still have negative 5x. This means that the two last numbers of both parentheses will have to equal that number somehow. So the only way we could get 3 and 2 to equal negative 5x would making them both negative. Because it doesn't tell us what x or the equation will equal, we're going to assume it will equal 0. Take the problem 2 parentheses at a time. So first, in our first 2 parentheses, we have x minus 3 equals 0. This means x has to equal 3. We'll next do x minus 2, which would be our last pair of parentheses. So we have x minus 2 equals 0, giving us x equals 2. Another way of writing this is x equals 3, 2. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video helped you solve for x.